Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. It's entitled Unlocking the Strategic Value of Your Network in an Unpredictable Economy. And it's presented by VETRO and Fierce Network. I'm Linda Hardesty, Chief Analyst for Communications Technologies at Fierce Network, and I'm going to be the moderator today. I have just a few housekeeping notes to begin with. First, you can customize your view by maximizing, minimizing, or closing panels. To reopen a panel, simply click its name in the navigation bar at the top of your screen. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available to watch on demand within 24 hours. We hope to have time for a few questions at the end of the webinar. So during the presentation, please submit any questions you have using the Submit Questions panel. You can read about the speakers' bios by going to the speakers' bios panel. We also have a Fierce Network research report about the topics that we'll be discussing today. And you can access this report in the handouts panel. And so now we're about ready to get started. I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. We have Will Mitchell, founder and CEO of VETRO, and Pete Pizzutillo, VETRO's head of marketing. So welcome, Will and Pete.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us today. I'd like to kick it off by giving a little context. VETRO has been helping operators map their fiber networks for some time, but is the company now pivoting to a broader mission?
Sure, I'll take a swing at that, Linda. We are, there's a little intro background here that Pete can get into, but to answer your question right out of the gate, we are absolutely pivoting to a broader mission. We actually describe our platform as the digital home for the physical internet, which is a bit big and audacious, but we're providing the tooling and the management infrastructure for data for the physical layer of telecommunications infrastructure more broadly than any one given thing. We're very focused on fiber and how it ties together, how it connects us all. But absolutely, the bigger mission is to be the system of record for physical infrastructure for telecommunications.
Okay. Well, as you well know, I just wrote a big research report about network systems of record, but for the audience here, can you talk about what that is? How do you define a network system of record? And why would it be important for telecom operators?
Yeah, I'll take this one if you don't mind. Well, traditionally there's been different, I guess, systems of records that have kind of grown up in the telecommunications space. If you think about functional software was developed to support business and operational functions specifically, so a billing system and operational systems, which created these different silos of systems and data, right? And it's just proliferated across a network operator's stack over time. But essentially, there's the customer records and the product and services catalogs have really been thought as essentially the crown jewels or the keys to the kingdom, right? And so operators get a little antsy when you start messing around with their customer records. They also don't want product and service catalogs to be tinkered with because a lot of bad things can happen, right? But what you've noticed over time is as these functional software systems have been built, people have struggled to sew data together from various other systems to get to some visibility into their business, right? And this is what I think Will, in creating VETRO, is kind of swept up into is getting access and adding network asset, physical network asset information with the customer records as well as the product services catalog. And like you can see, when you bring those things together, magic happens. You get a lot of insight in terms of not just business performance, but also operational performance. So this has been happening through scripting and third-party systems to sew systems together. And what we're seeing, and our customers are pulling us this direction, is as the authoritative source of network assets, it's becoming more and more clear that that's important into supporting this analysis, right? So this is how we think about this kind of triumvirate of three different systems of record are essential to help operators understand and operate their business.
Yeah, I feel like I've been talking with a number of operators lately about cleaning up technical debt and trying to get their back systems more organized. But in terms of the network system of record, how does VETRO deal with operators whose network maps and information might be a big convoluted mess? I guess we're talking about brownfields.
Well, we have a lot to say about that, Linda. I would say we start with empathy, given that we've seen it all, and you know, it represents a lot of pain, honestly, to have critical business records stored in a place that you can't get at them, or where they're incomplete or unreliable, or dated, or what have you, and it does take concerted effort to bring that forward, to sweep it clean, to bring things into a state of, you know, pristine completion and operational, you know, excellence and use when it comes to documentation of the network. We approach these things with a problem-solving mindset and in a partnery kind of way with the operators, because, you know, everybody wants the same thing in the end, which is to digitize things in a complete and well-structured manner in a fiber management context, which is what we're living in and delivering. The mapping records specifically are only part of the challenge. That's the geometry, the points and lines on the map, how things are connected. And the connectivity side is another sort of the other half of the challenge, right? So splicing records, to put it simply, and the description of what fiber is connected to what, where. We help people tie that together in this map and in this fiber management context. Those records can be in Visio diagrams and spreadsheets, or paper notebooks, anything you can imagine, or a homegrown database, what have you. All that stuff needs to be kind of muscled into shape. We provide great tooling to do that. So most of our operator customers do it themselves. We provide assistance and services for those who need help. But it's a challenge going from an old system to a new one. You know, anything you can imagine, a ERP system, a financial system, a CRM system, there's always going to be some transition and transfer work. But we've seen it all. We know it's hard. We also know it's doable, and we can help.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, Will, is that part of that brownfield process is understanding how people are operating today versus how they should be operating in the future, right? The same things that we've done in the past, or we've always done it this way, is kind of things that we hear oftentimes, right? But when you start zooming out and understanding, well, how does that data need to flow to support the business or business decision or operational decision at the right time? If you think about the data flow and the ideal processes, then there's some guidance that we can provide to help people evolve both their systems and how they operate to support the efficiencies and agility that they're all seeking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Linda, one more comment on that. You know, we often go into these scenarios where perhaps as a rural telephone company that's been running copper, they want to deploy fiber to the home, or they are overbuilding themselves, or any number of scenarios like that. We often start with the question of what do you really need on a go forward basis, and what can you leave behind? Because it's like when you're moving from one house to another, when you're packing up, there's a lot of stuff you can choose not to bring with you to the new place, right? And also you discover gaps. You discover things that you might have expected to be present in the old data that aren't there. So it can be a learning and discovery journey, as well as a cleaning house journey. At the end of the day, when you move into the new place, you have just what you want, and it's right where you want it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because all of this cleanup kind of reminds me of Marie Kondo. I don't know if a lot of men in telecom are familiar with her, but She's this Japanese organizational
Oh.
guru. Well, there
That's going
have
to be a new
been,
offering, Linda. We're going to Marie Kondo people's networks for them.
you've already used that. Yeah, that's funny.
No, not yet.
Oh, um, there are some examples in the UK because there have been a lot of fiber startups there before we had this phenomena in the US. And I wondered if you had any anecdotes, maybe from the UK, about dealing with these brownfield situations. You have any horror stories you want to share?
Success stories, Yeah, I mean, just to zoom out a little bit, what you're referring to in the UK, there's about 300 altnets out there, and there's a lot of consolidation that's been happening in the last 18 to 24 months, right? So now you have startups and brownfield meshing together. One example, we worked with a company, one of the altnets that was merging 4 different organizations into one, right? And so you can imagine not just adopting a new tool set or new capability, but now taking 4 existing processes, trying to figure out what the one standard path forward should be, and then understanding what is the right systems and platform in place to support that type of growth, right? There's a lot of money being put in there. These are really big decisions. So that was a process. And I think the learnings there, early, this was about 18 months ago, the learnings there was to really, you need to get to the data level, right? And I think that there's all the mapping and the philosophy was in place, the strategy was in place, but it was really in the implementation that we got stuck. We had to get down to data level understanding of, okay, in this system, what are these attributes? How are they defined, right? In this system, how are they defined? And then kind of go through that mapping. And then the second part of that was, as you can see from this diagram, that data is being fed to many systems and processes across there. So having a strategy to help operators swap out those integrations, the orchestration of that data across multiple systems was a daunting task, but something that's essential to build out a kind of an as-is and to-be software architecture along with your data modeling. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you want to talk about your competitors, but what differentiates VETRO from existing solutions?
Pete, you want to take a first swing at that?
Yeah. I mean, Will came out and he can tell you more about the origin story, but he's a long-standing, been working in this field for many, many years. I'm not going to tell you how old he is, but a lot of experience helping operators try to tackle this problem. But then when you zoom out, there are things that you can rethink, and he's done a great job. First and foremost is building a system that is built for fiber, right? There are a lot of general purpose systems, and I think folks coming through the universities are trained up on systems. It's like having an Excel template. It's very, very powerful, very, very flexible, but it comes with a lot of customization and configuration. And one approach won't be replicated the next time, right? So you have all of these great, powerful capabilities that are highly tailored, right? But being able to work shoulder to shoulder with network operators to understand how they think about the network, the type of data they need, and when they need it. Will and team have been able to build a system that was really could step right into how network operators perform today, which I think has been a huge differentiation because we can get going quickly. There's not a lot of customization that's happening where other systems, you can take general purpose systems can take anywhere from 8 to 10 months to get configured and up and running. So stepping in, easy to use, and accelerating the time to value are really things that Will and team were able to enable with the platform that they came to market with. I don't know, Will, you want to add some color to that?
Yeah, you're hitting on some pretty key things, I think, from a differentiation perspective. Complexity is bad, simplicity is good. That's where we started. Let's take the complexity of geospatial GIS tools, really, off the table and deliver a surgical fiber management solution that can be used by telecommunications people. And those people can be engineers, network engineers, designers, they can be planners, they can be execs. We're trying to deliver this in a way that's consumable and valuable to all sorts of parties who don't have any technical mapping background, if you will. That's pretty key. The just right delivery of this information, this complex information, in a simple manner is something we strive to do, and I think that is differentiated. Under the hood, I shouldn't skip the fact that we are cloud native and cloud only, and we started there. We have this immensely scalable architecture underneath. We have a modern data pipeline architecture, which is something no one else, I don't think, can claim. So we're really delivering we'll harp on the system of record term again, but a business critical platform, if you will, instead of a point solution or a isolated mapping tool. And I think that's unique and different as well. The time to value point Pete made is, I think, massively differentiating as well. Everybody on VETRO, hundreds and hundreds of customers, thousands and thousands of users, they rely on the same network data model. The core of the connectivity data is uniform across the landscape, the customer universe. And as such, we can stand up a deployment and instance of the system in a day. We can have people using it with authoring new designs, for example, in another day. And it doesn't take months, or in many cases, we hear about years of implementation pain and configuration investment. You can carry things forward and tailor the solution for your use, but relying on that sort of unified, uniform deployment strategy out of the gate just lets us move fast and lets our customers get value on day one.
Yeah, just one more point to punctuate there, and I think the word platform is a good one. Will pointed out that point solution is really kind of been the approach, but if you go back and you look at the system of record idea, democratizing that information across an organization and having the technology to support it, all those business processes, as well as tie into a BSS system or to your website or to a network managing system, that kind of extensibility of that data, I think is something that the market's really responded to, right? Because what we're seeing in the market is people want to get out of the IT business. They don't want to have software engineers and IT folks, right? They want to get into serving their customers. And the more and more that we can help them allocate time and effort and resources to taking care of their customers, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the data pipeline comment, one closing thought on that is extremely valuable, because we're built for a deployment in an ecosystem, or at least an adjacency with, let's say, the customer billing records in that little bubble diagram, for example. And we trade data back and forth through automations, surgically and in a well-managed form. Through API access, you can arrange this to teach the billing system, for example, when a new address or location is available for service. That serviceability information is gold, because it leads them to the ability to sell and begin collecting revenue on a given address. In return, when things change on that side, they get pushed back into VETRO. And so this data pipeline is a running record of changes, status changes. This place is now serviceable. I'm going to tell that other system about it, and they can do their business and start making money more quickly. So there are a lot of examples like that, but being able to have system-to-system communication driven by the data in the fiber management system that we support, I think is differentiating and super valuable for the operators who are going through these big digital transformations and trying to automate everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm wondering about new operators, because there are a lot of new fiber startups, and they might not think about systems of record right from the beginning, or they've got so many things to think of,
right,
primarily finding revenue as fast as possible. What would you tell them, about the importance of starting from scratch with a good system of record?
Yeah, I think the slide that we have up there, you can see, system of record tying in as early as possible, even at the feasibility and market analysis step of the process. All that informs, the sooner that you start building and documenting that information and then maturing it as you go through the plan, design, build, support, monetize, life cycle phase, the better off everyone will be. Some of the things that we talk about is, start clean and stay clean. And so instead of, as Will mentioned, there's a lot of different parties that are involved in building out the network, right? And so some of that data may reside with an engineering firm, not actually the network asset operator. Having a platform where both the design team and the asset owner can collaborate on feasibility, design, and planning has a lot of goodness besides data, right? So the sooner that you can build your processes around that platform, you get yourself off onto the right foot. Will, there's more to that.
Yeah, no, it's very common. I mean, we've run into every type of sequencing scenario under the sun, I think, but in all cases, the most successful outcomes are those where the fiber management platform or the system of record is employed on day zero, I would say, because it's the home for the data that's going to be the documentation of the network at the end of the day. So if you are evaluating where to build, sketching out designs, maybe doing construction in different places that are not attached to the ultimate destination map and database, you're creating disconnects, opportunities for data loss, work and lift when it comes to transitioning from one stage to the next, from one system to another, when it can literally all be homed in one place from the get-go. And data can be extracted and updated and returned in that round tripping I was just talking about, which makes everything seamless. And you never lose sight of, what's the right record set. It's in one place, one database from the beginning to the end. And the end includes ongoing operational use cases indefinitely. So, the sooner you get your records right in that context, the better off you are, the more ahead of the game you'll be.
Yeah, and Linda, I would say operators all say the same thing. And if you kind of work with the end in mind, it makes a lot of sense to understand how to get the data right? I mean, everybody says that we want reliable, affordable, highly valued networks as they're trying to deploy, right? And so if you look at not building the right platform and data foundation, then how do you support that system when you can't find your assets, right? How do you scale? How do you know where to grow and where not to grow if you don't have great visibility into the market and your network or competitive markets, as well as automation? So having the data right is the key to being able to improve your field service operations or to have greater visibility in your network monitoring. So all of that contributing to reduce OpEx, right, as well as increasing customer satisfaction, which every operator says. So, it's trying to get the market to understand, or these the operators understand that you got to get the data right. And you see that, right? You see that with these brownfield operators that are investing, they're bringing in CIOs from outside the market, right, to come in and to look at rationalizing these systems to get their data under control, right? So the folks that are kind of on the leading edge are already pointing to the same things that we're talking about. So I think there's a lot of analogs in the marketplace that tee it up. But it's getting to the forefront of the queue to say, listen, let's get that foundation right so that we can achieve all these things on the back end.
Are you seeing a lot of awareness from startups that they need to do this? I'm assuming that people that start a fiber company probably have experience working at fiber companies. So maybe they are aware about the necessity, but what's your experience?
I have a view on that, Will. What's your take on that?
My take on that is that, yes, they come knocking and they pick VETRO actually because of that differentiation we described before. They don't want to start off in a, let's call it a backward-looking posture, whether that be working in desktop GIS or CAD for design, or whether that be adopting a system that might have been built for on-prem, maybe legacy telco uses. So they're looking for a modern platform, SaaS solution, modern architecture that they could stitch together into an automated a suite of automations, tying together an ecosystem of tools. The fewer number of the tools, the better. They're looking for kind of best of breed, future looking bets to make, and they all tend to come knocking our way when they are coming out of the gate. In particular, if they're private equity backed or funded for rapid growth, and they look to their peers because that's who we serve the best.
Yeah.
Pete,
Okay.
did you have something else to say there?
No, you stole my thunder. That was a good answer. Thanks.
I will say, Linda, one more thing on the why go into the fiber management world and the system of record at the beginning. We just, by way of example, we have customers who have historically maybe designed in CAD and GIS, and then at some point in the future just decided it's time to import that network design data into a fire management tool. That import process takes time and work, and it's rework essentially. And when we talk to them and say, you could just design natively in VETRO and never leave it, or kick things out to do dress up in CAD later in the other direction, when they shift their thinking in that way, they determine they can move a lot faster. We've had just recently, we had a large customer who was able to retire some of that legacy approach and move the work into VETRO, and they say that they're currently working 42% faster than they were before. So there's a lot of savings there.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we've talked about what a network system of record is and why you should start from the beginning. Let's get to the more exciting part, which is what are ways that an operator might use a network system of record, and especially how could they use it to grow revenues?
Yeah, so it's the flywheel here, if you will. We kind of referenced it earlier on that there's a system of record by definition is, authoritative source of data that is supporting many, many things across an organization. As you can see, we've already mentioned a couple times that in the design phase and the feasibility stage, understanding service location information, existing network infrastructure are critical inputs into figuring out where to build, how to build, right? So that's the early phase there. And having a platform where you can take a feasibility study and mature it in from a high level design down to a low level design and have the design supporting tools like a mobile field walkout tool to be able to go and validate those designs has a lot of value in terms of compressing that schedule from design to build, which we see as one of the big obstacles out there. There's multiple parties involved. There's permitting issues in there. So any kind of changing creates a ripple effect downstream. So the more that you can bring that kind of visibility and collaboration early on, there's a lot of downstream benefits, obviously. And that naturally moves into the build out and the operation and monetization. We'll talk about monetization in a second there, but being able to have the network asset inventory and information available to your build crews that they're out there has a lot of value in terms of getting real-time as built feedback, right? So one of the things you talked about the startups is they move fast, right? So they're on a clock to be able to meet their monetization take rate goals. Historically, it was kind of more of a waterfall effect where there'd be a section built out, a neighborhood built out, or a subdivision. Come back, somebody would input that system, it would go into a sales and marketing process or into an operational process, and you'd be like, oh, okay, we're ready to serve that area. Tying all this together really brings all that visibility forward. So you can see as buildings and houses are becoming connected and online in real time, which then helps you accelerate that time to value aspect, as well as push that precise information out to the field crew support teams, as well as your in-house help desk, right? So there's a lot of goodness in terms of having a platform with the right information supporting all those processes there. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, there are all sorts of use cases, Linda. In fact, it's almost like, what do they not use this data for instead of what they do use it for? But in the context of faster time to revenue, I'll give a little story. One of our very first customers, when we were contemplating building this, had an individual who was in between sales and quotes. This person had to tell the salespeople, "Can we serve this business address?" And the quoting in person was busy, had a backlog, and it was taking them. It got up to 3 weeks. It went up to, I think, 6 weeks at one point to get the answers back, right? And that drag can really hamper business growth. With a tool or platform like VETRO, you can put that quoting and estimation and the serviceability information in the hands of anyone you want real time, so they can answer the question themselves in a screening level. Yes, we can get to you, and even what might it cost to build a lateral to that location or what have you. So whether it's fiber to the home or fiber to the business, there's serviceability turned into answers, scope and quoting decisions, speed. That's the heart of the matter, really, when it comes to tying network information to revenue.
Yeah, I would add there's a couple other talking points on there, right? And so, monetization is consideration across the life cycle. So understanding from as a marketing person, right? What is my leads? How do I track and capture those leads, or understand demand in a certain area, so that a lot of the marketing and solicitation by network operators is pretty, I wouldn't call it old school, but it's pretty traditional, right? I mean, these are folks that are out there knocking on doors, walking through neighborhoods. They're door hangers. They're sending out mailers, right? So the more you have an understanding of where to sink that time and money investment from a marketing perspective, the better off the return. Addressing is one of the big problems that we see out there in the marketplace, just which sounds crazy, right? But understanding, is this a legitimate address? Nothing worse than sending people out and it's a cornfield. So that's something that we've brought to the table most recently, is what we call Address Genius, is the ability to help customers clean up and maintain a really accurate, precise address book, if you will. And that informs the marketing process early stage, as well as downstream when you're sending out trucks to a specific location, right? So the monetization process is both on the retail side. We also talked a little bit about the wholesale side of things, understanding where your networks are, understanding capacity in your circuitry, so that you understand, can I lease out certain areas? If a partner calls, being able to accurately and quickly say, yes, we can help you service that, and also understand the costs associated with that quote, right? So there's a lot of goodness that understanding the location, the precise capacity, as well as the type of assets that are out there, that I think most marketing and go-to-market teams are going to really understand as, hey, this is going to help me achieve what I need to quickly, instead of being beholden to a request back to a GIS department or to a network, somebody in the field to verify what you're trying to sell.
Yeah, and we're trying to assist these operators to squeeze efficiency into everything they do, which ultimately leads to faster time to more revenue, which was kind of the premise of the question here. If that customer we mentioned before is saving 42% of their time on design work, that's a lot. That's a lot more design moving out of the pipe faster, which means you're hopefully accelerating your deployment timelines. No software can help you get people to respond to permit requests faster or dig a trench faster, but nonetheless, like, the whole process can get squeezed, where it can be influenced by good data, actionable data, consistent and accessible data for collaboration, as Pete mentioned. And so if then you turn up the serviceability information more quickly to the right people, and things just move faster. You might even be able to get into a market more quickly in advance of a competitor getting there, and in a sort of a land grab race context that happens too. So we're trying to support all those things.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that I thought was the most interesting part of the research report had to do with merger and acquisition scenarios and why a network system of record is so important. So I'll just turn it over to you guys to talk about that, because it's kind of obvious, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great report by the Alex partners here on the buy side and sell side recommendations in broadband. Is, I think they call it the America's Fiber Playbook. And there's other folks saying, kind of pointing out the same things, but there's definitely value both on the buy side and the sell side, right? And we can kind of break that stuff down. But one of the weaknesses that the report talks about is the integration between, the system integration as well as the network engineering and planning are create friction in the M&A process, right? So the recommendations through the report were, if you can get ahead on these things, it increases your opportunity to optimize the valuation of your network, right? It also improves the ability to have successful conversations in the due diligence stage between the buyer and the seller, right? It makes sense. You're not going to buy a house without a home inspection or without a blueprint, right? So these are kind of table stakes, which have miraculously been missing. We have heard, we work with a lot of private equity folks, that they instantly become suspicious when folks take a long time to get their records together, right? And so that starts showing indications of the maturity of the organization that's being bought, right? And so what type of synergies, the evaluation of the synergies is, do I need to build up that competency within the company that I'm going to acquire, or are they already at a certain level of maturity where we can now take it to the next level? So I think those are some of the leading indicators that we're hearing. Will, if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're selling your network and it's premised on passings count, for example, you say I've got 100,000 homes passed, and the buyer is going to say, okay, that's great. Show me the data, and to be able to have that at your fingertips, and from a trusted source, it drives a lot of credibility and speed. So again, back to efficiency, and the speed and efficiency itself drives further credibility. I'll leave it at that for now. But sorry, one other thing was our customers talk a lot about TAM, their own addressable market. So their growth potential, their expansion plans, they need to prove again, like say, if the expectation is that network of 100,000 passings is going to grow to 500,000, this mapping information driven by network designs and such is part of that. The proof is in the plan putting there, like not only who do I pass today, but where am I going to go, and how do I demonstrate that that's a viable market to build into? I'm ready to go. I have a design. I know what I'm doing. So the current assets plus TAM equal greater value.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking, going back to the earlier story about the UK, is verification of assets, the actual assets that are deployed. A lot of the stories that we've heard is we thought there was a cabinet there. We got out there and it was a bunch of McDonald's trash inside of a box, kind of thing, right? So now as a buyer, you're starting to erode into that the synergies and your payback period, basically, right? So having verifiable, trusted source of that type of information, I think goes a long way in terms of buyer confidence.
So it's really important for the buyers and the sellers. I've heard that operators are sometimes approached by other verticals that want to use their network. For instance, a wireless operator may want to use something from a wired network. And systems of record could help in these situations?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of use cases that we can talk about there, Linda. I mean, smart cities is one of those applications, really understanding if a municipal network or a private network can serve as kind of the fabric for expanding that into smart cities. That's both a monetization opportunity for the broadband provider, but also an economic development opportunity for municipalities to consider. But so being able to pursue or have those types of public-private partnerships, conversations with the proof that you can support the types of plans, I think goes a long way, kind of putting you to the top of the list of providers that a municipality may want to work with. I don't know if there's one that you want to mention.
Yeah, we kind of look at verticals in a, I don't know, a surgical manner where it might be within telecom. You talk about a new vertical being data centers and the fiber to connect them. We can talk about that further, but as opposed to a fiber to the home CLEC or ISP, which again is different from a cable company and maybe different from a Department of Transportation. So all those types of use cases exist within telecom, but also we have customers that use this type of tool, our tool, to manage traffic cameras, and there are sort of public safety applications and education rings and all sorts of things that depend on fiber, with more to come in the future.
Did you have any thoughts about middle mile or open access opportunities in terms of, I guess, understanding where your assets are, your network assets, and how you might be able to use those?
Yeah, sure thing. Understanding on the wholesale side, understanding where your middle mile assets are, and being able to share those, right? Because your customers are going to be a monetization source would be your fiber to home partners that you're going to tie into. So having accurate view of not only location but capacity is helpful to broker those kind of conversations. Like we do have multiple open access customers that are just worried about the ring, but they have 14 different fiber providers, right? So just think about the level of complexity and information flow that needs to happen. So if you have bad data in that context, things go bad quickly, right? And then their business, their customer satisfaction is dependent on the open access provider to be able to quickly help them resolve things, right? So as the complexity of the networks grow and the economic impact of those grow, I think it behooves to have even better visibility, as much visibility as you can into the precise assets deployed, the precise locations, and the type of capacity. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, middle mile and open access, interesting themes for sure. I guess one comment I would make is that, in the early days, we were considered a fiber to the home solution, which we've gotten really good at that. We've modeled that. In many ways, middle mile is much less complex from a data perspective, fewer connections and fewer branches on the tree, so to speak. But we've gotten really good at managing the trunk as well. And in those cases, we're talking about, rather than bundles of 12 fibers or dozens of fibers, you're moving into the thousands, many thousands of fiber strands in a cable. And that's what's being deployed to support the data center boom, to support the AI boom. And, there's a lot more of that being deployed today and will be in the future. This type of system, our system, is built for them and that as well, very directly. And we record and manage circuits, physical fiber paths, and the circuits that traverse them as part of this data management arena, which is important because then you're sort of bridging the physical and the virtual layers, and you're bridging the physical data with commercialization, like Pete mentioned. So middle mile and also whether it's B2B, nationwide transport, or whether it's a ring around a data center campus, those are really, really cool use cases that we're attacking aggressively.
So just to be clear, Will, in terms of data centers, you mentioned, how many fibers there might be. We've, the numbers have gotten really huge. And VETRO's technology can keep track of all that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The
So
actual strands.
this at the strand level, and the data model is important. It's a nesting, so you've got a strand of glass. Inside that strand of glass, you might have wavelengths. So you can put many flows on one piece of glass and going in, but going out, the strands in a bundle, the bundles in a tube, and the tubes in a conduit. The conduit, it's this whole hierarchy of containment, and all of that can be modeled and digitized, documented, and importantly related, so you know what's in a given conduit if you're going into a repair situation or a new hookup.
Yeah, and I believe we have a question in the Q&A, which I believe you answered, but I just want to make sure. How does VETRO handle logical inventory, circuits, IPs, et cetera, in terms of the physical assets?
Yeah, so we kind of treat the circuit as an end-to-end fiber path, as an object, as a record in the database, with all the elements of what is traversed. So how things are connected, whether there's a splitter or a splice along the way, that circuit path is all recorded. Characteristics of that circuit can be recorded in VETRO as well. We're not managing the active services or the active layers on top, but we provide that bridge from the physical layer to those services. And that's where circuit IDs and circuit records tie into the map and back out to any other provisioning and delivery tools and monitoring tools as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's talk about something a little bit softer, which is, how does a network system of record help operators' marketing department? You touched a little bit on addresses, but I've learned that a lot of telecom marketing is just reaching the right people at the right address. Did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of that coin. One is improving your marketing response and take rates is really dependent on picking the right location to pursue, right? So the more you can marry the market data with your existing network and your plans to build, I think your team starting off on the right foot to go after the right business, because you can look at competitors and other things like that. So having all that information available within a trade space, I think is important for setting the right goals and the expansion goals. From a marketing perspective, we mentioned addressing, right, is key, but also being able to tie this information together, right? So if you go back to one of the pictures where we're showing kind of the interconnections, a lot of inbound leads are coming from your website, right? And so a lot of companies have service availability on their website, meaning I type in my address, do I have fiber in my neighborhood, right? And so if you do, great, you can then present options from a product services catalog for them to select from and start with a qualified lead. But that service availability has to be real time, right? It can't be, yes, we update it every 3 to 4 months type of thing, and so having a system of record that is tied into your CRM, that's tied into your BSS, that's tied into your website, right, provides that opportunity for that real-time information to be available across the board. From a marketing perspective, being able to then understand those leads or being able to see if there's any fallout to quickly address those in terms of follow-up. I think that's really what the modern network operators needs to get to is monetization is really the most important part at this point in time in the US. So being able to get more efficient there. And these are bootstrap customers or companies, right? So they may not have a big mature marketing team. So the sooner that you can provide that information, it makes a small team way more effective. I don't know, Will, anything else on that?
Well, I think it's interesting to talk about the address problem again in this context and serviceability, both of which are things that VETRO can inform and kind of be the home of. And a couple of examples come to mind. If by using the network footprint, which dictates serviceability today and tomorrow, if you're building out someplace, you've got the ability to, on a real-time basis, inform serviceability status of an address, manage that address to be valid, deduplicated, and updated, and such, and push the information out to other systems, CRM or other tools. We've got a company now that's relying on VETRO serviceability status at the address level to drive postcard mailers, as Pete mentioned earlier. That's another use case. Another example would be infill sales. So if you're picking up customers along a street or in a neighborhood, it's really important to know where they are and who they are, but equally important to know who their neighbors are. And this sort of network map tied to customer records can inform infill marketing. So we know we got your neighbors signed up. They're really happy. Are you interested?
Yeah, and we've also heard stories about helping to weaponize the support and operations team, right? So while they're doing an install and having that right market information, like, hey, go to the next 2 doors and while you're out there. And, so you have now field teams that are able to help represent and build leads while they're kind of out there. So optimizing their time, but also helping the marketing team as well.
One last thought, sorry to keep going on this, but is that the system of record here in this context is also a communication platform. Not that we're driving or sending communications, but rather the map is really important to a lot of people, including the stakeholders, partners, engineering firms, maybe jurisdictions, but also the general public. Your audience, if you're selling retail fiber to the home, you might want to publish a map saying where you're going and where you are, and you can do that with a push of a button in VETRO and have it show up on your website and be interactive and such. So, as a communication tool, it's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the operators that I talked to for the research report used the network system of record to publish a broadband service map so customers can see if their home is served.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a bonus. It sounded like.
We're full of hidden bonuses. There's like dozens and dozens of things like that you can do that we haven't touched on.
A final topic I just wanted to ask about is the fact, is it important that you're cloud-based and why?
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. Some of our earliest customers used to celebrate acquiring VETRO, getting started using VETRO by throwing old servers from their IT closet out the window. And, they're removing a ton of cost and hassle, really. When you take all of the infrastructure, the IT side of the house, and outsource it, and it's just kind of taken care of. It's just a much more seamless and a better experience, and one that can scale up or down, is actually more safe, secure, and resilient than anything in your own closet. I don't know, Pete, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of goodness baked in there. It's pretty much the standard across other industries, right? And part of that is because people don't want to be in IT, right? They don't want to have work on the weekend to do a full system upgrade or whatever and kind of deal with that. System of record is, that we just spent half an hour talking about, is tied into all these critical systems, right? So if you start mucking with it on an install, think about all the bad stuff that could happen on the BSS level or your network monitoring level, right? Or at the OSS level. So there's just a lot of risk baked into that type of traditional approach. We're able to push out capabilities. We get alerts, seems like every couple of days, we're pushing out new stuff, new enhancements that are flowing directly to the customer. So, there's the immediacy of getting kind of the innovation of new stuff, as well as not having to dedicate and the maintenance upgrade lift and introduce that type of risk into your business and operational processes. I think those are win-wins for, you know, these network operators that are heads down competing in a pretty lean environment.
Okay, well, we're coming up on about 5 minutes left. I wondered, did you have any advice for operators, what they can immediately do to work toward a solution with their network system of record?
Yes.
Sorry,
Say it one
Linda,
more
could you
time.
repeat that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to end it on a positive note. If you had any tips or advice for operators as to what they could immediately do to implement a network system of record, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, one tip is don't wait. You know, whether it's VETRO or something else. Honestly, it's the we've had a lot of folks come to us and say we want to make this move, but it's going to be a huge lift to get our legacy plant records in there. And by the way, we're building out all these new projects, these new neighborhoods, and the easy answer there is like is to suggest that you just start doing the new stuff in VETRO, and then bring the old stuff along as time permits a little bit later, and that's a good strategy. This is, but it's not waiting is the advice, honestly. That was just one example of a scenario. I mean, there are other reasons, but I think what else, Pete?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when you start talking to these folks about the symptoms of the problem, I think that then it becomes obvious, right? So I think it's, do you have folks that are looking for resources out in the field wasting? Is it on this side of the house? Is this across the street, right? I mean, those are kind of really obvious pains that everybody's dealing with, right? Are you monetizing your network as fast as possible, right? Or is there order fallout, those types of things, you know? And so I think asking yourself those things, if you desire to be agile, reduce OpEx, and start investigating the things that are creating friction to those goals, I think that quickly brings you to, well, is your data in the right place? Is it connected to the right systems? Is it being protected? You know, that's something that we didn't spend a lot of time talking about. The system of record is a living, breathing thing. One of the things the system of record system, that platform that we provide, is it prevents bad data from coming in and corrupting good data, right? There's nothing malicious in there, but you could have somebody in the field that's fat fingering something in there, and it comes in, and now all of a sudden your database is your data's off, right? So, you know, the goal of, if you desire to be agile, to grow quickly, to optimize the valuation of your network, to reduce OpEx, you really need to look deep at the data level. And what you start putting your finger in, if you go back to the system of records little Venn diagram, there's that data, whoever the systems that house that data, those are your critical systems that you need to get under control quickly, and everything else downstream should get better.
And that becomes the foundation for automation and you know, anything you might imagine applying even AI solutions towards, right? So making that network itself, the data about it, actionable, and a Q&A machine, if you will. You know, everyone's trying to go from a dozen tools down to 3 or something like that, and fewer tools, more tightly integrated, and data flowing in an automated, streamlined fashion is the goal. Start by getting your data in place and in shape in a network system of record.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Will and Pete, for being here today. And thank you to our audience for submitting your questions. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, everybody.